Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Booth, publisher at Genius Book Publishing, and the host of The Other Side of the Story Conversations with Authors Who Know Too Much. Today, we have with us Chris Westphal. He's the author of, at least as far as I know, 5 books that we have published, and he's going to tell us about himself and then do a little reading. So, why don't you go ahead and give a little introduction to yourself, and then we can jump into what you have to say to us.
Okay. Hello, America. My name's Chris Westphal. I started out way many decades ago as a journalist, and I lasted about a year and a half because I really wanted to write feature stories, and what I really wanted to do was write comedy because I am a TV kid, and I thought that I could do that. So I moved down to LA when I was a young pup, and I knew nobody, and I decided that LA was in need of my comedic gifts. And 6 or 7 years later, they realized that, and I managed to get an episode of Murphy Brown,
Oh,
which at
that's
the
right.
time I think was the #1 show in the country. And that was a huge hit. And I had that dream experience of every agent in town I had a writing partner at the time, and every agent in town calling us up and signing us. We signed with um, Ari Emanuel, who now is owns Live Nation, and he is literally the most powerful agent in the world. I don't know. Anyway, my writing partner abandoned the partnership after we had been on a show for a while. That's when I got to hang out with George Clooney. That was exciting. And my writing partner had a young baby, and the whole business was too tough for her. So I was on my own, which is a whole story in itself. I began writing novels. And let's see what happened. I've written 11 books, uh, 5 novels that have been published, a few that are languishing and in need of a publisher, and a few nonfiction books. Ghost wrote a book, and here I am. I'm working on a couple of books. I'm working on I've been in a writing group for 20 years, I guess. And we started a collaborative novel where just take turns writing a chapter with no guidance whatsoever. And that has ballooned into 145 pages so far, but it got completely unwieldy. And I am the king of unwieldy plots. So I have taken it over, and I've been uh, hammering it into shape. So we'll see what happens with that. It's actually very fun, and it's gone in areas I never would have imagined. So, which
Wow.
all my books have done. I have never outlined anything. I never, I just have some ideas I like, and I write them. So that's me.
Wow. That actually sounds a lot like my writing style. My soul baby, my favorite novel was literally, I started out with a premise and a character and got as far as I did. I still have to write the third act of that book. I thought I had finished it, but
Uh,
I realized afterwards that I didn't write the third act, and now I'm in the process of doing that. So I get where you're coming from.
well,
Um,
I kind of have I have had many times the experience. I remember when I was writing my first novel, I went, I got married, and we went somewhere, and I had this very distinct um, sense that the characters that I had thus created, thus far created, were milling around in the living room, tapping their toes and looking at their watches and going, When is he coming back?" Uh, yeah, and I got that was so that my first novel was actually I went to the USC professional writing program called
Mhm.
Master of Professional Writing. And so my thesis was my first novel, which was a cool book, which never found a publisher, although it's like many uh, oft-told tales of mine that have been that close. Uh, it was what happens when a company learns how to identify true love. And it's an insurance company. So they will insure your love. And I finished it, and it's interesting. Uh, anyway, the characters in that were milling around my living room and waiting for me to come back, which I did. And I rescued them from their stasis.
Cool.
Yes, indeed.
So, are you going to read for us today?
I would happily read for you,
Would you
Stephen.
please read for us today?
Well, how about if I read from my newest novel, which is The Pyongyang Paradox? And The Pyongyang Paradox is the story of Tom Huddle, who is a writer who has written things for like trade magazines,
Hmm.
Kitchen Utensil Monthly, things like that. And he's now teaching at a broken down Catholic school in the little town I invented some time ago called Echo Valley, which
Hmm.
is somewhat based on Ojai, where I lived at the time. And so Tom has at last finished he's finished the first chapter of his first novel. But Tom is one who has very grandiose thoughts about his talent and about his potential. So his book is about Buck Sampson, who is a sort of a cross between James Bond and who's the character in the Mission Impossible, the Tom Cruise character,
I think Ethan something or other. Yeah,
Ethan something or other.
that's the
So
guy.
he is a superhero. Oh my, women fall at his feet, and he's totally arrogant, totally misogynistic. Uh, doesn't realize what a jerk he is really. Uh, so ultimately, through very mysterious electromagnetic and things having to do with entangled particles, in fact.
Hmm.
Tom and his fictional character, Buck, switch places. And Tom, the struggling writer who's now teaching at a broken down Catholic school, St. Dymphna Academy. St. Dymphna is the patron saint of the insane.
Yeah.
And, Tom teaches at the St. Dymphna Academy, and he switches places with Buck. So Tom will end up in the book that I'm about to share with you, and Buck will end up teaching at the St. Dymphna Academy, which you can imagine. So this is the first chapter of the Pyongyang Paradox. The Pyongyang Paradox, Book One of the Sampson Chronicles, introducing Buck Sampson, Master Spy, a novel by Tom Huddle. Chapter 1. As the North Korean Air Koryo A310 left Prague's Václav Havel Airport for the 15-hour flight to Pyongyang, Agent Buck Sampson turned to the attractive brunette beside him. She was studying the crossword puzzle in a Czech edition of iWorld magazine and, like the others aboard the plane, was part of an international team of ophthalmologists and their support staff traveling to the North Korean capital, where in the next week they would perform some 3,000 cataract surgeries as part of a UN relief program. Sampson had joined the group at the last minute under an assumed name. It was now time to test his cover, so he addressed her in Czech. Lvita Česky? Do you speak Czech? Apparently surprised at having heard the language, the woman looked up and smiled. Ano, jaké štěstí, Sampson answered, extending his hand. Jsem Dr. Novak. Yaroslav. She smiled. Natalia Kacharova. They shook hands, and her grip lingered. They continued in Czech. Novak, I believe I'll be assisting you. I'm a surgical nurse. What a coincidence. We're together. Indeed, said Samson. Of course, he knew that the seating arrangement was no coincidence, and that in all probability the woman beside him was an impostor. Buck expected that, but he wasn't prepared for the powerful attraction he felt for her. From her languid brown eyes to her slightly turned up nose to the graceful arch of her neck, Natalia, or whatever her real name was, oozed seduction. Buck had not encountered a woman this tantalizing since Felicia Drake, his one-time partner in the Global Security Alliance, and the only woman Buck had ever truly loved. But Felicia had met an untimely end during the mission known as the London Lunacy, and it was painful for Buck to think about her now. He was grateful when Natalia leaned toward him. Tell me, Dr. Novak, how is it that we've never met? I've been in the field for some time. In what city? Brno, said Natalia. Samson smiled. I see. Well, I'm primarily a researcher and director of the Ophthalmic Research Institute at Pilsen University. Ah, that explains it, Natalia said brightly. Well, it's a privilege. The real Yaroslav Novak, whose background and credentials Buck Samson had appropriated, was now on holiday in the Canary Islands, having won a last-minute, all-expenses-paid vacation there thanks to the machinations of the GSA. With its global reach and virtually limitless resources, the Alliance was the only organization that had had any success in penetrating North Korea and installing agents on the ground. Listening devices in dictator Kim Jong-un's palace had revealed that the regime was using CRISPR technology to aerosolize the Ebola virus, putting it into a temporarily dormant state. By just being near other people on a subway or airplane or in a busy public space, agents could infect thousands who would in turn infect tens of thousands more before the virus came to life. Mortality would be close to 90%. A secret program to inoculate the North Korean populace against the disease had already been completed, the GSA's informants had reported. Buck's mission was to destroy the laboratory where the work on the virus was nearing completion. Months earlier, he had retired and was about to commence a dive in the treacherous sinkhole known as the Shaft in Australia when a coded message alerted him. Typically, details of assignments were made via encrypted message, but this time, the GSA's founder and leader, Helmut Father Rubenstein, appealed to Buck personally. Buck accepted the mission in part because it was of the utmost urgency, but more out of respect and admiration for Father Rubenstein. This would be Buck Samson's last assignment, assuming he survived. The chances of that were good, because compared to his dozens of previous missions, this would be a simple one. But Buck had a scant 4 weeks to perfect his cover identity, which included fluency in the complex Czech language. Now, as the plane leveled off, Buck decided to verify his suspicions about Natalia Kacharova's true identity. He turned to her. So, Natalia, what's your experience with ischemic optic neuropathy? Natalia answered without hesitation. It's very puzzling, isn't it? 40% resolving spontaneously. Puzzling indeed, said Samson. For the next hour, Buck quizzed her about ophthalmic conditions ranging from macular degeneration to entropion to glaucoma, and she seemed fully informed. Enjoying the exchange, Samson couldn't resist dazzling Natalia with his vast knowledge of retinitis pigmentosa, a topic on which the real Dr. Novak had written extensively. Natalia's medical knowledge was impressive, yet Buck's suspicions persisted because he could not determine conclusively whether she was a native speaker. He decided to put her to the test. Natalia, how about if we compete in tongue twisters? Natalia paused for a moment, then smiled. Vienitsky, she said. Excellent. You start. Staring ahead, Samson rubbed his chin in thought, then recited the first one. Yet yell yellin, yet yellum. Natalia's eyes widened. Velmi pusobli, she said. Very impressive. After thinking for a moment, she narrowed her eyes, then spoke. Strik shusta svietsky. The game was on, and over the next 2 hours, Buck recited all of the tongue twisters he knew, then concocted a few daunting challenges on the spot. Somewhere over the Black Sea, Natalia threw up her hands. I've repeated them all 5 times, she said. I don't know anymore. Samson taunted her. Well, if you wish to concede. No, she said sharply. It's just that. She looked around. What do you have to do to get something to eat on this? Samson took hold of Natalia's hands, then spoke softly. There is no shame in surrender. Natalia withdrew her hands, then rubbed them on her skirt. I think I know one more, but that's all. Sudden death, Samson said. Whatever, Natalia shrugged. Then her eyes closed. She began to recite one of the most difficult tongue twisters in the language, which in English would translate to 3,333 silver fire engines squirt over 3,333 silver rooftops. She barely made it through the first phrase before stumbling. Okay, you win, she said, reaching for the flight attendant call button. Samson took hold of her wrist. That was a good effort, he said, but so many urge sounds in a row is difficult. Right, said Natalia. Well, the game's over, so there's no need to discuss it. Samson grinned winningly. Then he delivered the tongue twister with flawless precision. Natalia stared at him, shaking her head. That's all right, she said. You are amazing. She knew she would sleep with him that night. He knew she would sleep with him that night. He was also certain that she was a Russian agent. Her accent was perfect, but he knew that no one really knew that many tongue twisters.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Tom, I and now my Czech, if anybody speaks Czech, those few words I spoke were atrocious and probably ununderstandable to a Czech speaker. And I did
Uh,
not read the whole tongue twister because
no, I know it's in Czech in the book. Yes.
it's in Czech. And I did the audiobook, and it was many painstaking takes, and he sped it up and he did all kinds of fancy editing to make it sound somewhat passable as Czech.
Uh,
Um, and I lived in Prague for a year,
mhm.
which I loved, and Kaczorova, in fact, is the name of a good friend of ours. Um, so I did try to learn the language. I studied it for 7 or 8 months, and then every time I would utter a couple of words, uh, my whoever I was speaking to, the taxi driver, whatever, would would say, why are you speaking Czech? You know, what good is it? It's so they so
It switch into English.
they would hear my yeah, they would just switch into English. So it is not the most widely spoken language. I love the language actually, but
Hmm.
I think it's very I love the sound of it.
Cool. Well, I don't.
But I
I
can't
was
speak.
going to give away another part of the book, where another language is spoken, but it's kind of it's kind of jarring and fun at the same time, so I won't give it away. But you know what I'm talking about at near the end with the guards.
R. Maybe I don't. I mean, I'm sure I do somewhere.
Okay. Well, I don't. I'm not quizzing you. I'm just.
Oh. Uh, there are a few languages in there.
I must. That was the only other one that I had to do a font for. So, um, so.
Yeah,
Anyways, let's jump into the questions and see what you got.
jump.
So Tom Huddle, how do you see Tom Huddle's relationship with Destiny evolving across your series of Tom Huddle books? Is it external temptation, internal conflict, or something more metaphysical?
Well, Tom, whether this will answer your question or not, I don't know. But as a character, Tom is always striving to fulfill his imagination of himself.
Hmm.
And he feels kind of terribly inadequate, and that's what gets him in trouble because he's often trying to be somebody he's not. And if there is a recurring theme in any of these, it is that you must be yourself. And that really plays up considerably in the Pyongyang paradox
Right.
because he literally is not himself. Um, Does that in any way answer your question?
I think it does. Although I was kind of leaning into the destiny as a metaphysical character, his own destiny.
He
Do you see what?
wants to have a destiny. He believes that he has this magnificent destiny, but it just isn't coming true. And the that I could say is a little autobiographical in a lot of ways too. But I do believe, as I have taught Tom, and I've tried to teach Tom this many times, that you just you just have to roll with it, man. You better be happy with what you've got because even that may be taken away. So I don't know if that answers your question
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay. Well, let's try that. That was
That's a
kind of
very
a off the wall
high-minded
question in the first
question
place.
for
Let's go to the Pyongyang Paradox. The Pyongyang Paradox blurs the lines between Huddle's fiction and his reality. We were just talking about that.
yeah.
What did writing that nested narrative let you explore that a straightforward spy story wouldn't? Talk about tongue twisters.
Wow. What did it let me explore that otherwise might not have been able to explore? Well, it let me mix up all kinds of stuff that I am interested in, such as astrophysics and this whole entangled particle thing,
Hmm.
and speed of light and all that. And I think my primary objective in any novel is to I took a class from somebody you know, David Gerald, long time
Oh
ago.
my God.
Yeah,
Now I'm gonna geek out because I love David Gerald. He's like I'm his number one fanboy. So
yeah. Well,
okay.
he's great. And so I took a writing set, like a weekend long writing
Hmm.
seminar from him many years ago. And he said, your job as a writer is to travel to the frontier and report back. And your job, in terms of as another great writing teacher of mine said, is to put your character up in a tree and throw rocks at him. And so you want to stretch that character as far as they can possibly be stretched. And Tom, I think any novelist, well, any fiction writer they're expressing some parts of their internal personality within that narrative. And Tom, he really he's so dissatisfied with his life. I mean, he's just teaching at this crummy school and
Hmm.
getting no appreciation, and the students are obnoxious, and he just to be able to be this magnificent superhuman person um, is a dream of his. But then, he finds out it's not so fun, and so it stretches him in ways that he couldn't be stretched. And as for writing a um, straight detective thing, where Tom becomes a super secret agent or something like that. Oh gosh, I don't know. It seems the genre is so densely packed with people who really know what they're talking about, uh,
Hmm.
that I didn't want to attempt that. So uh, it was much more fun for me to write a send up of the whole genre, a lot of the movie stuff, the
Hmm.
movie conventions. Um, I don't know if I've answered your question either. Stop me anytime.
Eventually, we'll get to a real answer. How's that? Yeah. Try this one. Huddle's humor often rides the edge between absurdity and melancholy. How consciously do you balance comedy with existential despair in his world?
Oh, well, how consciously do I balance? You know, life is a cabaret, my friend. I love torturing my characters and torturing their foundational beliefs in what's important, in who they are, in what they want, in in all respects is the most fun in the world. And as for bringing humor, I mean, comedy is it isn't jokes. I think it is taking your character to the putting them in a situation that is I don't know, it's more than absurd. I have so many. I used to actually teach a comedy class, and now I'm completely
The
blank on 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 the
vocabulary,
nature
yeah.
of it. You're you're torturing them, but you know that they're not, no real people were harmed in the writing of this novel, uh, as far as I know. Um, Stephen, Uh, go ahead.
Okay.
Hit me again, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get, hopefully this one will be a little bit more digestible. If Tom Huddle and Buck Sampson were forced to co-author a memoir, who would quit first and what would the book be called?
Well, I think they would kill each other before they actually got through one chapter.
Uh,
Collaboration is really fairly difficult. It takes.
yeah.
Well, Buck Sampson would certainly believe that he is going to be the boss of this thing, no matter what. And I've certainly never met anybody like him, but writing is its own thing. And if you think,
Mhm.
I just am particularly annoyed by people who, oh, this doesn't often happen, say, oh, well, I've always wanted to write a book. I just haven't had time. No, that's not how it works.
Right.
Writing books is hard.
Yes,
And
it is.
I don't think Buck Sampson could sit still long enough
Hmm.
to do it. I think he would think that he could just just muscle through the narrative somehow. Whereas Tom, uh, he's never, well, he wrote in his first, he never, I don't think he ever has written a book, actually. In the first novel, which is called In Huddle We Trust, formerly called Echo Valley, uh, his publisher keeps changing hands. He's writing a book called Garbage. His publisher keeps changing hands, and I don't think he ever gets past chapter two or three. Uh,
Uh,
so does Tom even, I don't know if either of them have what it actually takes to complete a novel. Among those things is to be sitting alone with your imagination for probably
many hours.
several months.
Yeah.
Uh, and that just, I mean, if anybody ever sits outside my office when I'm working and listens in, I don't know what they would think, but I'd be laughing. And uh, you had a really good question about comedy, and who's the right? He was a children's writer.
You need to give me more context.
I don't know. Never mind.
Okay.
What makes funny? What makes funny? Uh,
Well, I've always considered comedy to
surprise,
be,
surprise without threat or reward.
I
So
see. Okay.
yeah, and one means of comedy is, I think comedy, particularly in a time like this, I think is extremely important because comedy against threat is the is one of the few things that can undermine threat. I'm thinking about the political situation in the country. Um, Mockery of the powerful
Mhm.
is very powerful in its more well, I mean, one of the more powerful things, because who gets thrown in prison when the authoritarians really come in, that the comedians and
Hmm.
people who are holding up a mirror to society. Um, so the surprise and well, for example, in I use a lot of stuff, a lot of comedy is language. And in one of the books, in what's the second book? Uh
Spy Load Me.
uh maybe I mean it's in The Spy Who Loathed Me, which is the really the ultimately the first book in the series. Um the main character, R- FBI agent Terrence Tilbury, is meeting the undercover Russian agent to exchange information.
Hmm.
And they meet on the merry-go-round at the Santa Monica Pier. And they can only talk, and it's noisy, they can only talk when both their horses are at the same level. And they're talking very serious espionage stuff, but they're doing it in an absurd uh, environment. So to me, that mashup of seriousness with
Mhm.
absurdity or in an inappropriate location uh, is funny.
Sure.
And I, yeah, go ahead. Give me another question.
Okay. Let's try this one. You write with a clear affection for your flawed characters, even when they're self-destructive. What makes a character redeemable to you?
Well, Tom, well, in the Pyongyang Paradox, he has a friend, Ernie. Tom has a friend, Ernie. And Ernie has fought his ultimately find out Ernie's brother committed suicide, and Ernie has fought in drug addiction and certain degree of mental illness. And Tom speaks to him in a respectful and compassionate way. So what makes them redeemable, what makes Tom particularly redeemable is that he is a compassionate person. He's not necessarily compassionate to himself, and
Hmm.
I think that endears him to the reader to a certain extent because we all have that voice. We all have that voice within us, I believe, that beats up on us or why didn't we do that thing when we could have done
Yeah.
this thing? And and I think that is very relatable to most people, unless they're Buck Sampson, because Buck Sampson doesn't think he's ever done anything bad. So I don't think you
Mhm.
like anybody who doesn't have any kind of an internal critic. And the critic may indeed be way too harsh or
Mhm.
uh, and inaccurate. But I think if in Tom's case that he is trying to be better and but the ultimate theme is that he's good enough, he is
Mhm.
he is who he is. So I think that's what makes him relatable. Yeah, they're flawed. He's flawed, but he is in by no means malevolent.
Right.
Uh, and
He's
all the
very sincere.
he's very sincere. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how I came up with that, but yeah.
Um, how much of Tom Huddle's creative struggle, especially his obsession with Buck Sampson, came from your own experiences wrestling with story or success?
Well, you'll note that all of my stories are have a kind of spy element.
Yes.
And like any writer, Tom is certainly some aspects of me. So way back in the day, when I had come down to break into comedy writing, um, this will date me a lot, but Yasser Arafat was assassinated in Egypt. And sometime after that, well, and that the CIA at that point realized, wow, dropped the ball on that one. And they realized they probably needed to add to their staff. Did I ever tell you this story?
I think you did, but tell us again.
They put
I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with this.
the CIA put an ad in Time magazine looking for applicants. And I wrote them a very sincere letter. And couple weeks later, I got a plain unmarked envelope saying report to I hope that I'm not going to get shot by a drone if I say this to it was a TRW building. I think it was down in Long Beach or something.
Hmm.
And bring this letter with you because we're gonna interview you for the
Okay.
CIA. I'm a struggling comedy writer. My hangout was the improv with all the other comedy writers, actors, and stuff of the
Hmm.
era. And so I go down to Long Beach, park my car, look around. I've forgotten the letter. Oh, wow. Okay, that's really kind of a bummer. But I've come all the way. I don't want them to think I've flaked out on this thing. So I go into the building, and you know how in most of these big high-rise office buildings, be a kind of reception desk, and
Hmm.
some 90-year-old rent-a-cop sitting there with his feet up on the counter taking a nap.
Hmm.
And well, this was like this Marine with a sidearm, and
Oh,
he,
wow.
he looked like he could kill you with a pencil. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hi, I'm which floor is the CIA on?" And he looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "Well," and I looked at the little whiteboard with the floors on. I said,
Hmm.
I don't see over there what floor. I don't know what you're talking about." Yeah. Oh, well, see, I'm here. I'm supposed to be having an interview. And he goes, "Oh, go sit over there. And what's your name?" Just sit over there. So he picks up the phone and talks to somebody. Go to the 24th floor or whatever. I do. And it's just nondescript office. And I go to the office I've been directed to. And the interview is, do you have any arms training? Well, no, I was in Boy Scouts. I took gun safety.
Hmm.
You have any military training? I go, no, but my family's in the alarm business. I would go sometimes but never encountered anything. Uh, and then he starts talking about like torture and things like that. And, and I said, well, I mean, do you think that kind of thing might happen? And he kind of leans forward on the desk and he says, this is espionage. So I have no idea. I mean, in my defense, I apparently wrote a pretty good letter because not
Apparently, yeah.
everybody who applied got interviewed. And I probably wasn't wildly unqualified to be some kind of analyst or something like that. Maybe I
Hmm.
was. I don't know, because I had been a reporter. I mean, I was sort of okay at sussing things out. But as for as for going on a car chase through the streets of Paris or something with some bad
Right.
guys
In a
shooting
mini,
at
yeah,
me, I don't think I would be very good at that. Uh,
probably.
so uh, this is the long way around to discussing why there are a lot of spies in my books. Maybe it is a little bit of uh, it is a little bit of a fantasy on my part, although I'd never want to do it. I think it would be horrible because you have to lie all the
Hmm.
time
Right.
about who you are. And
Hmm.
uh, yeah, anyway, I just sort of have a lot of little weird intersections with that. I also applied a couple of times. for the Foreign Service. Because when
Hmm.
I lived in Prague, I met a number of people in the Foreign Service. They were really interesting, and that sounded like a really cool life. But I was like 50 when I applied, and I passed the exam, which is a very difficult exam, and a lot of essay questions and analytical things and all that. And I got to the second phase where you go and there will be like maybe only 8, 10 people in the test. And they'll give you a question, you're the head of station or office in this fictional country. And we've got some federal grants that we're going to make, and you have to approve one. They want a new airport. They need some help with their farms, and there's a revolutionary thing, so they need their army built up. Anyway, you have to write this whole analysis of what it is,
Hmm.
and then you break up the various parts of the analysis with your team, and then you have to do a live presentation, and you've got judges. You have one judge in each corner of the room. It's really intimidating.
Wow.
And they're grading you and writing down all the things. I didn't get that either, but I did it twice. I did it twice. So like Tom, there's a lot of and like every writer I've ever known and every artist I've ever known, there's a lot of failure in
Hmm.
before any
Yeah.
before any success happens. Um,
Delivering pizzas and driving a taxi and teaching
yeah,
computer skills. And yeah, I gotcha.
yeah, and lots of manuscripts that
Hmm.
don't, for whatever reasons. I mean, I've had manuscript. I don't know. I'm appreciative of Genius book publishing. Um, for one, because you recognize my genius, uh,
Hmm.
when others have not. And so, go ahead, ask me another
Okay.
question.
Here's one that we haven't touched on. In Huddle We Trust plays with the idea of faith, not religion, but the stories we tell ourselves. What
Mhm.
inspired you to treat belief as a kind of narrative addiction?
Wait, run that. What? What?
Okay, I'll come a little closer to the microphone. In Huddle We Trust plays with the idea of faith, not in
Oh,
religion, but in the stories we tell ourselves.
yeah.
What inspired you to treat belief as a kind of narrative addiction?
Well, when we were in Prague, I mean, we all want to understand the world,
Hmm.
and I do appreciate that, and I think there are many mysteries in this world that we'll never understand. Uh, which is one reason I am rather fascinated by quantum mechanics, quantum physics,
Hmm.
and all that crazy stuff, and so I think religion and faith traditions, if you will, are you know they are all attempts to explain how we happen to be, how
Hmm.
conscious, how did consciousness. I'm fascinated by this idea that you're a conscious being, but really we are just an assembly of cells. And what, how did consciousness happen?
Hmm.
So if you inhale a molecule of oxygen, now it's part of you. So in a sense, it has a role in this consciousness, but then you exhale it and now it's just oxygen. So where does consciousness come from?
Hmm.
And what stories do we tell ourselves about our role within the universe? And that the origin story of that uh, in the early chapters of that, the character George Preston is uh, he's driving across North Dakota, and
Hmm.
um, he sees a silo, a grain silo in the distance, and he remembers this period from his childhood when they'd sing that song, Jesus loves me, this I know, because the Bible tells me so. But he misunderstood it.
Okay.
He thought it was Jesus loves me into the silo, which is something my sister actually did. I
Mm,
appropriated that story from her life for my narrative purposes.
right.
Uh, so he's kind of musing. It's a long drive. North Dakota is boring and flat. My parents came from there, and so
Hmm.
uh, he thinks, it's funny. I've had said this silly little experience as a boy, and I don't even know what a silo looks like. I wonder what they look like inside. I'm kind of curious. So he drives off the road. He goes across this farm, and he goes into the silo, and there are some apparently pranksters there, and they slam the door, and he's locked inside the silo, and his car is stolen. So now he's stuck in the silo, which is not a good thing in
Hmm.
North Dakota. And it's got rye in it, and the
Hmm.
uh, rye is where LSD came from a mold on rye. And
Oh,
he's
wow.
starving. He's starving to death, so he eats some of the rye. And he's in there for about 3 months. And there's a rat in there with him, and he befriends the rat. And they come up with a whole iconography, and he comes up with a whole iconography. He's completely fried by the time he gets out of there. And he tells a
Hmm.
lot of stories uh, about his time in the silo, and they become very mystical to him. And ultimately, his ravings become the foundation of the religion called Bagnusianism. He's
Hmm.
called the Swami Bagnus. Well, when I was in Prague, I became good friends with a pastor there, Jim Krikova is his name. Wonderful, brilliant guy, and uh, a scholar of the Bible, and terrific person. And
Hmm.
we were having beers one time, and he had read the book, and because it had just come out then, and he said, the the origin of that story is not it's not the same, but it's not so far off as the development of other religions,
Hmm.
Christianity, I reckon. And he said that during the biblical times, that Jesus was kind of, I don't know, I hope I'm not going to offend a bunch of Christians, and that was, there were a lot of people competing to be the Messiah. That was a
Sure.
thing, was like almost a political office. And so they would tell tales about all the miracles they had performed, and the magnificent things they'd done, and the uh, directives they've gotten from God and all that stuff. So he, even though the book is somewhat dismissive of faith, or mocks it a
Hmm.
little bit, uh, people need it. I think people need an understanding of their place in the universe.
Hmm.
That's what Bagnusianism gives them. And I'm not particularly a fan of any religion, although I am not dismissing the the idea that there are things within this world that we totally don't understand, and
Right.
that are so amazing as to be attributed to some higher consciousness, which maybe there is. I don't know. I have my own beliefs on that. I think
Okay.
I think if the whole universe was a singularity at one time, that means all time, space, and consciousness were at one point together. And I do
Hmm.
think now, well, what has been put together cannot be torn asunder, or something like that.
Right.
So
Okay.
I do think that all this consciousness is shared, and you know, I guess we'll find out later
There you
whether
go.
it's true.
All right. Let's try this one. Hopefully this will be a little bit more direct. How has Huddle's voice and yours as a writer changed from the spy who loathed me through the Pyongyang Paradox?
Oh, Tom is a lot nicer, and
At which end?
uh, at the in the Pyongyang Paradox,
Uh-huh.
he's a lot kinder. In the first book I wrote was In Huddle We Trust, and he he's he's certainly not a narcissist, but he's really kind of locked in his own
Hmm.
perceptions of the world. I think he's far more open in the later books, and I think he's a kinder, more thoughtful person.
Hmm.
Still buffeted around by uh, the way people misunderstand him, but but he's he has come a long way. I mean, he's still the same kind of delusional guy who's
Hmm.
extremely uh, he he's delusional about how great he can be. For example, in the Pyongyang Paradox, he's written the first chapter of it, but he's
Hmm.
introducing, it's book one. So
I heard that.
he's gonna he's gonna do like Sue Grafton, you know.
Hmm.
The Pyong he has an alphabetical listing of all his books. I can't find them at the moment, but uh he's convinced that this is he gonna get the MacArthur Grant, the Booker Prize, and
Hmm.
the National Book Award. Has anybody got all three? Well, hey, uh,
Ask the
he's
wrong
really
guy.
writing pulp
Hmm.
spy fiction. So he's delusional about his own capabilities and his own destiny. But not, he's extremely resilient because he gets knocked down, but he doesn't quit. And
Hmm.
he ultimately he can accept reality if his face is
uh,
pushed into it hard enough.
wow. Let's see. Okay, here's one. I think we touched upon this one. So, you seem fascinated by people who want to matter but can't quite make it in the world, make the world notice. What draws you to that kind of quiet desperation?
Myself,
Okay.
well, don't we all think well, I don't know, we're kind of a fame driven culture.
Hmm.
Not that I particularly want to be, I don't really want to be famous. I don't want to be famous for being famous. I'd love to be famous. Well, I kind of like to be famous for what I've done, you know.
uh, well, there's
Um,
recognition and there's fame. I mean, let's be honest.
yeah, okay, well, I don't care about fame per se. Um, come at me again with this. What inside me?
What draws you to that kind of wanting to matter but not being able to make it in the world? What draws you to that
Well,
kind of
because
quiet
that's
desperation?
what our society is about. Our
Mm.
society is so much about celebrating people for pretty nominal things, for one, or celebrating like the Kardashians or whatever,
Hmm. Yeah.
celebrating them for being famous, or fame for being,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
there's I think all the books have that kind of element of people striving for things that they see within society that are glamorized and that uh, are, painted as the ultimate achievement or the ultimate desirable outcome, but they're
Hmm.
not. That's kind of the theme of all of them. That you can't be driven by an externality or
Hmm.
by some example that's been fed to you through the media, uh, because they're all fake. Uh,
Hmm.
and ultimately you have to, the most satisfying thing is being the best version of yourself, the most
Hmm.
compassionate, the most uh, generous, the most genuine version of yourself that you can be.
Hmm.
Satisfaction is.
Okay. Last one.
Okay.
I got one more for you.
Okay. Is that a promise?
It is a promise. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So, we were talking about fake a moment ago. The fake Buck Sampson novels, inside the novels, inside the Pyongyang Paradox, are brilliantly over the top. What was the most fun or revealing part of writing bad pulp fiction well?
Oh boy. Well, so the initial plot was he's got to disable this uh,
That.
Ebola virus. Well, well on through that, he realizes, oh, that's not it at all. Um, so
Hmm.
I, I just amping it up and taking it into an entirely new, unexpected realm. I'm a real admirer of like, do you see Inherent Vice, the Paul Thomas Anderson movie, based
No, I have not heard of this.
based on the Thomas Pynchon novel,
Okay.
um, or The Simpsons. I just love the way they start with one thing and it's 6 or 8 steps later, and they're in a totally different universe. So
Hmm.
that was really satisfying to send up all that stuff. And plus, I got to talk about because it started with astrophysics, and I got to get into that uh,
Hmm.
in the science fiction level. Um, whether it's good pulp or not, I don't know. I was really trying because so much of it is so absurd. It's hard to top
Hmm.
absurdity. It would be hard to write satire about our current uh, political situation, I think, because
Hmm.
it's so over the top.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so going over the top of like a James Bond movie is not easy, and I mean they take themselves semi-seriously. Uh,
Hmm.
but
Well, not the Roger Moore ones. I mean, let's be honest. The Roger Moore ones are he's laughing the entire time. So,
yeah, well, I don't know. I it was great fun to mock it, but mock it affectionately. And
hmm.
they're they they are also commenting at times on the ridiculousness of the situation where
Hmm.
well, I don't want to give away the plot. No spoiler alerts here.
No spoilers.
As
Okay.
we ended all of our book reports in junior high. To find out what happens, you have to read the book. Yeah.
That's funny. You know, we gave it away when in my junior high, but okay. Well, Chris, thank you very much for entertaining us for this time, and I really appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully everybody will enjoy our conversation as much as I did.
Likewise, I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.